We invite the jury in.
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Lewis.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. We need Mr. Burmester. Peggy. Tom, would you get the jury lined up for me? Oh, thank you. Sir, if you just wait in the gallery for just a second. Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right there is fine. Okay. Mr. Burmester, are we ready for the jury?
We are.
Okay, let's bring the jury in, please. Have a seat, folks. Thank you. All right. Have a seat. Thank you. Mr. Burmester, the state's next witness, please.
The state calls Brianna Peterson.
Okay. Dr. Peterson, if you'd step in front of Brittany, we'll get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, subject to the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. Please have a seat.
Hello, doctor. Can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Brianna Lynn Peterson, Peterson.
Are you employed, ma'am?
Yes.
How are you employed?
I'm a forensic toxicologist with NMS Labs.
How long have you been a forensic toxicologist?
Over 20 years.
And with NMS?
I've been with NMS since June of 2021.
Okay. So you were working there in March of 2022?
Correct.
Okay. What is a forensic toxicologist?
Forensic toxicology, you analyze biological samples for the presence or absence of drugs and alcohol.
And what is your education, briefly?
I received my bachelor's degree in chemistry from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in 1997, a master's degree in forensic science from the University of Illinois at Chicago in 1999, and a PhD in toxicology from the University of Georgia in 2007.
Since becoming a forensic toxicologist 20 years ago, have you had training, continuous training?
Yes, so throughout my career, I've received training specific to the chemical extractions that are to be performed on the biological samples, the instrumentation that's used for the analysis, and then also pharmacology for the interpretation of the drug and ethanol results and how they might apply to either impairment or a medical legal death investigation.
So, have you had a chance to, this is kind of a funny question, have you had a chance to check the data from biological samples?
Yes.
About how many times have you done that?
So my primary job duty is case review. So on average, I probably review 12,000 cases a year with NMS Labs.
And have you ever testified before as an expert in a criminal case?
Yes, I have.
About how many times?
Approximately 160.
How does the toxicology process work? I mean, how do you get it? at whose request, and what happens to it?
So NMS receives samples from various clients like medical examiners, coroners, law enforcement, hospitals. So we receive the evidence and the client will request specific testing to be performed.
And you said they come from all over the country?
Correct.
And so how do they get there?
So they can be shipped via FedEx, UPS, hand delivery, U.S. mail.
Then once they arrive at NMS, what happens to the sample?
We have a specimen processing department that will open up the packaging, compare the evidence against the information that was provided by the client on a request form to make sure that the information matches. And then we create our own unique case. We have an electronic laboratory information management system where we'll input all the information provided to us, what testing was requested, and then we give each case a unique 8-digit number that we barcode. So all of the evidence is barcoded so it can be tracked throughout the time in the laboratory.
Once they receive it and process it as you've just described, then is it secured someplace?
Yes, so it's a secure facility in general, and then so the building is secure, and then the laboratory also has limited access to the people that need to use the laboratory, and then where the evidence is stored in like walk-in freezers or fridges, that also requires like a prox card access. So it's secure and then limited to staff that need access to those areas.
So when it comes to testing, what happens? We heard about some gray vials and stuff, for example. What happens to how does it get into the laboratory?
So for this case, we received 2 blood samples. They were both in gray top vials. So each vial is going to get its own unique barcode number. And then when testing is going to be performed, we will take out a small volume of blood that's needed for the test. So we have the original container that was received, and we just remove out or aliquot the amount of volume that's needed for the test. And then, that's placed into a clean new test tube that also is barcoded and tracked.
Then this aliquot is forwarded to the lab for the scientists to run through the instruments?
Yes, so the aliquot is given to a staff member who will perform the specific test following a standardized operating procedure.
Okay. Is it run by itself or in batches of cases?
So we run batches, so there's going to be many other unknown case samples, and then also every batch will have a set of standards and controls that is also run concurrently with the unknown cases.
So when the instrument runs its test on any particular sample, how is the data entered?
So everything is being tracked by that unique case number that we gave it. Once an extraction is performed, the sample is run on an instrument. The instrument has inputted, like they scan the barcode to tell the instrument this is, this vial is this case number. After the data is reviewed, it's sent electronically from the instrument to our electronic laboratory information management system that stores the results. So it's always just following our unique case number.
Is there someone near in time who then reviews that data to make sure that it was processed properly?
Yes, so after the person in the laboratory performs their procedure, it runs on an instrument. When the instrument is done running the entire batch, someone's going to review all of the data for the knowns to make sure that the positive controls were positive, the negatives were negative, and then that all of the unknown cases, that any results that were found meet the acceptance criteria for reporting. So they'll look at the batch in its entirety to make sure that it's acceptable based on those standards and controls. And then when they're done, a second person is going to do the exact same thing. So it's like a double check of their work before that batch is released and those results sent to the computer system.
And that's the same process for each test that you run on all the various substances?
Correct.
Okay. When do you come into the picture?
So after all testing has been completed for a case, then in my role as a toxicologist, I'm going to review the data from all of the testing that was performed for this specific case. I also have access to the administrative information provided by the client on that request form, so I'm making sure that the correct testing was performed that was requested. So I review everything, and then I will issue a final toxicology report with the findings from all of the testing.
So in this particular case, you received some samples from the Utah medical examiner on March 8th?
Correct.
Okay. And it was assigned the unique number at that point?
Correct.
And what did you receive?
We received 2 tubes of blood, vitreous fluid, urine, liver tissue, and gastric fluid.
Okay. And initially, what were you asked to do?
Initially, it was just requested that we perform a test that screens for alcohol and drugs in one of the blood samples.
And did you do that?
Yes.
Okay. In the screening, were any of those? Did any of those come up positive for substances that you subsequently tested a confirmatory test?
Yes.
Okay. And tell the jury about that.
So we first perform a broad drug screen that looks for hundreds of different drugs. And then based on those results, if there's any positive findings, then we will perform a second confirmation test that's more specific and sensitive for that drug or drug class. And so that's, we're taking a separate aliquot, performing a separate test, running on another instrument to confirm those original screening results.
And in this case, what did you find in the confirmatory test?
Fentanyl and norfentanyl.
Okay. And did the confirmatory test identify levels?
Yes, so fentanyl was reported at 15 nanograms per milliliter and norfentanyl at 3.3 nanograms per milliliter.
What is norfentanyl?
Norfentanyl is a metabolite of fentanyl. So when your body is trying to eliminate drugs, they'll break them down into a different form called metabolites sometime that are easier for the body to excrete. So it's inactive, it doesn't cause any effects, but it just shows that some fentanyl has been metabolized to norfentanyl.
Did you screen for hydrocodone?
Yes.
And did the screen identify anything for further testing?
No.
Okay. Any other opioids tested in the screening?
Yes.
And any others besides fentanyl positive for further testing?
No.
Do you know how long hydrocodone stays in the body that you're able to find it in the subsequent toxicology test?
So hydrocodone has a half-life of maybe 4 to 6 hours. So a half-life refers to how long does it take for the concentration to go in half. And usually drugs will be completely eliminated from your body in 5 half-lives. So if someone took a dose of hydrocodone, we would expect it all to be eliminated within 20 to 30 hours based on that 4 to 6 hour half-life times 5.
Okay. When a person dies, does it freeze in place whatever is there? I mean, you don't continue to eliminate it, or it doesn't evaporate once the blood is drawn out. It freezes it in place. Is that correct?
In general, it's going to be a snapshot of what was going on. There are some drugs that might have limited stability, like cocaine can be broken down after death just due to enzymes that are present that can break it down into its metabolite. So there are a few drugs that we know have limited stability in the biological samples after death, but for the most part, yes, it's, your body has stopped working, like it's no longer going to be metabolizing, etc.
Is that true for opioids then?
That it should be a snapshot of them, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Have you ever heard of a principle or a theory or something called postmortem redistribution?
Yes.
Can you give a brief explanation of what that is?
So postmortem redistribution, so after someone dies, the pH of your blood starts to change and the permeability of the tissues isn't maintained the same. So it means if there was like drugs stored in like major organs like your heart or your lungs, they might start to seep out of those organs and go into the neighboring blood. And so this means like they're being redistributed. So maybe there was a concentration of drugs in your heart, and now after death, due to the changes the body might be undergoing, they might go into the blood and increase the concentration. So the blood might not be, the concentration that's there might not be an exact representation of the concentration at the time right before death, right? So it might have increased due to the tissues releasing some of their drug stores into that blood sample.
When you obtain the blood, when the person, the OME or whomever is obtaining the blood, does it, after death, does it matter where they obtain it from with regards to this redistribution?
Post-mortem redistribution should occur less if you take from a peripheral blood source like the femoral vein, because those veins aren't as close to the major organs, versus if you take blood from a central source like a cardiac, that is closer to your heart and all of the other organs. So it's more likely to have postmortem redistribution in a central blood source compared to a peripheral, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen in a peripheral blood source.
Okay. So does the literature say, identify what is a lethal dose of fentanyl?
So studies are published that provide concentrations of drugs found where it's been determined that fentanyl contributed to the death. So there are studies that give these concentration ranges, yes.
And does it vary from person to person?
Yes, so based on an individual's history of use with the drug, they might have a tolerance to it, which means that you might need a higher concentration to obtain the same desired effect. And it also means that you might need a higher concentration from someone, a chronic user, compared to a naive user for that drug to cause their death. So it can vary what is a lethal concentration for individual to individual.
For a person who has never taken fentanyl before, what is the literature say is a lethal dose?
So just in general, the lowest reported concentrations of fentanyl are 3 nanograms per milliliter, where it's been contributed to their death.
Okay, so in this case we had 15.
Correct.
Which is 5 times that.
Correct.
Okay. Now, even assuming this redistribution, postmortem redistribution, is that significantly still above this 3 nanograms per milliliter?
Yes, 15 is greater than 3.
Thank you. I am just a lawyer, so pardon my math. Okay, at a later time, were you asked to examine other of the samples that you were sent by the Utah medical examiner?
Yes, in October of 2022, the client requested that we perform a alcohol and drug screen on the gastric fluid.
And did you do that?
Yes.
Did, following that screen, did you get positive results for which you subsequently performed confirmatory tests?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us about those?
Yes, so ethanol was detected at 279 milligrams per deciliter. Quetiapine was detected at 16,000 nanograms per milliliter. Fentanyl was detected at 20,000 nanograms per milliliter. Norfentanyl was detected at 52 nanograms per milliliter. And acetylfentanyl was detected at 29 nanograms per milliliter.
We haven't heard about acetylfentanyl. What is that?
Acetylfentanyl is a fentanyl analog, so it's similar in structure, but it's a illicit drug. So there's no prescription pharmaceutical drug where it's going to be prescribed. It's solely illicit, and it's often seen in illicitly manufactured fentanyl as a co-product.
So for purposes of an analyst or a criminal investigator, that would be a marker that this came from a source, this fentanyl came from a source that was illicit.
You could provide that interpretation, yes.
Okay.
I mean, they could have just had acetylfentanyl and maybe a fentanyl prescription, but often when you see acetylfentanyl, it's an indication that the fentanyl was illicit.
Okay. This 279 milligrams per deciliter of ethanol, I want to go into that. First of all, how much alcohol is that in layman's terms, like in order of, say, shots of liquor or 12-ounce beers or whatever?
So this will be kind of a multi-step answer. So the 279 milligrams per deciliter is a concentration. And so your question was asking just about milligrams. So like if you have a beer or a shot of alcohol, that's just in terms of milligrams of ethanol. So to figure that out, you would have to take the 279 times the total volume of gastric fluid that's available.
Were you made aware of the total volume?
Yes, I was.
From whom?
Dr. Ulmer.
Okay, and did she give you a figure?
700 milliliters.
Okay, and so from that you were able to make a calculation?
Yeah, so you would multiply the 279 times the 700 milliliters and doing the conversions for deciliters to milliliters, but you end up with around 1,900 milligrams of ethanol versus a standard drink of ethanol is 14,000 milligrams. So it's well below the amount that you would find just in one standard drink of ethanol.
Is there another possible source for this alcohol than alcoholic beverage?
Yes, so it's known that if you have a source of glucose and bacteria, that ethanol can be formed post-mortem. So the bacteria convert glucose, because it's carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, just like ethanol. It can convert glucose into ethanol. And so obviously, like in gastric contents, you might have a source of glucose if there's food there, and then your stomach naturally has bacteria. So this postmortem formation can occur either in the body prior to sample collection, but it could also happen in the collection container because often they don't have a preservative that would inhibit the bacteria from doing this process of postmortem formation of ethanol.
Is there any way you can chemically identify whether it's this postmortem decomposition or vodka?
Not in the testing that we performed.
Okay. Can you tell us, based on your knowledge of the volume in the gastric fluid, anything about this quetiapine, how much of a pill, if you will, would be there, or a dosage?
Right. So again, you would take the concentration, the 16,000 nanograms per milliliter, multiply it times the total 700 milliliters, and you get a very large number, but drugs are given typically in milligram doses, and there's 1 million nanograms in 1 milligram, right? So after you do that math, it ends up being 11 milligrams of quetiapine. I just want to state, like, the assumption is that 700 milliliters of gastric was homogeneous, so that the concentration was consistent throughout the entire volume, and that the sample that was sent to us represents that 700 milliliters as a whole. Like, that assumption has to be made for the calculations that I'm providing.
And so is it that 16,000 come to equal a standard dosage, prescription dosage?
I would say it's less than a standard dosage. I mean, it depends on a person's prescription, but typically like 75, 100, 250 milligrams of quetiapine might be prescribed versus our calculation was 11 milligrams.
Okay. Did you, a few minutes ago, did you have an opportunity to look at State's Exhibit 9-1, a quetiapine bottle with its label on it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. You also have the results that you obtained through screening and your confirmation test. With the knowns that you have available to you, are you able to say that that the quetiapine and fentanyl had to have been taken sequentially, either one before the other one, or at the same time, or anything like that?
I cannot make any of those conclusions.
Okay. I have nothing for this.
Ms. Lewis. Glass of water is for you.
Good morning, Dr. Peterson.
Morning.
I'm Wendy Lewis. I'm one of Ms. Richins' attorneys. Nice to meet you. So you've been working at NMS Labs, you said, for how long?
Since June of 2021.
All right. And prior to that, were you still doing the same type of work, forensic toxicology?
Yes, I was.
All right. So part of your job isn't working with live patients, true?
Correct.
All right. So you don't deal with when someone comes in who's maybe possibly overdosing from some kind of drug?
That's correct.
All right. So you look at what's happened only after death by looking at samples, correct?
I look at the data generated from those samples being tested.
That's fair. That's fair. How a scientist would describe it rather than an attorney. Okay, so I want to talk about fentanyl and follow up a little bit on what Mr. Burmester asked you regarding lethal doses of fentanyl. So here you said we had 15 nanograms per milliliter of fentanyl in the bloodstream. Did I get that right?
Correct.
All right. And fatalities for fentanyl, there's a fairly large range of what could be a fatal dose of fentanyl. Is that fair?
Correct.
All right. So a much lower dose could cause the death of someone. True?
Lower than 15? Yes.
Yes. And in some people who have some tolerance, it could be a higher dose than that before it would be fatal. Fair?
That's correct.
All right. So when someone takes fentanyl, is it fair to say that it would take about 30 minutes from the time the fentanyl is ingested before it starts to show up in the bloodstream?
Yeah, some of it's going to depend on if the stomach is empty and if it's in liquid form or solid, but I would say usually 15 to 60 minutes it might take for absorption for it to be at a measurable amount in the blood.
All right. And is there any way to tell? Let me rephrase that. There was also fentanyl found in Mr. Richins' stomach. We spoke about that.
Correct.
So we know that he for sure ingested fentanyl. It wasn't given to him or he didn't take it any other way. Like he didn't use it, he didn't inject it. True?
I mean, you could do both, but the presence of it in the gastric contents does provide the interpretation that one route of administration was ingestion.
All right, that makes sense. Now, you mentioned that also present was norfentanyl.
Correct.
And norfentanyl is a metabolite, did I say that properly, of fentanyl?
Yes, that's correct.
So when the body starts to metabolite the fentanyl, you'll see norfentanyl also in the system, or in the samples.
Well, correct.
Okay, well, let me ask another question, maybe we can clarify. It's possible that someone could die of a fentanyl overdose so quickly you wouldn't see norfentanyl in the system, true?
That's correct.
All right. So in someone who's never taken fentanyl, hypothetically, it's possible that first exposure, they take it, they die so quickly, norfentanyl is not observed.
Yes, that can happen.
All right. So when someone has a high dose of fentanyl and we see norfentanyl on the report, the body has started to metabolize the fentanyl.
Correct.
And wouldn't it be more, well, strike that. Let me ask one question before I get to that one. So that would mean that after the fentanyl was ingested, Mr. Richins was alive long enough that his liver began to metabolize the norfentanyl, or the fentanyl resulting in norfentanyl.
Correct.
All right. And that would be more likely for the body to start to metabolize it before death in someone who it was not their first time taking fentanyl, correct?
I don't think you can draw that conclusion.
And, well, let me back up. So it's possible someone has no exposure to fentanyl, they take it, they die very, very quickly.
That's a possibility, yes.
And someone who has had exposure, I'm not saying that 100% wouldn't, they may show norfentanyl, but it's more likely that someone who's had some exposure to fentanyl would start, especially at a higher dose, would start to metabolize it, having the norfentanyl appear, as opposed to someone who had never taken it. True?
I don't agree with that.
All right. You talked about things that were not found in the blood, and was naltrexone tested for?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and there was no naltrexone in Mr. Richins' blood?
The screening result did not meet the threshold to go to that second confirmation test.
All right. I want to move to post-mortem production of alcohol that you talked about with Mr. Burmester. So post-mortem production of alcohol is more likely to occur in some scenarios than other scenarios. Fair?
Yes.
I mean, not every body is going to have post-mortem production of alcohol. We don't see that just because someone dies, that's not there. True?
That's correct.
All right. So some of the circumstances that might result in postmortem are things such as a long delay between the death and autopsy. True?
I mean, the two variables that are needed are glucose and the bacteria.
All right. But is it also true that there are certain scenarios where it's more likely to happen, such as a long delay between the autopsy and the death? You're more likely to see it than an autopsy that happened fairly quickly. Fair?
Are you talking about in any matrix or gastric in particular or just general?
Well,
Sorry.
no, now you're getting scientific on me.
I'll just answer your question that yes, a longer postmortem interval is a pre-analytical factor that could lead to postmortem formation of ethanol.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And I'm not saying every time, but these are
Correct.
circumstances that make it more likely.
It can be, yes.
Okay. And we didn't have a long delay here between death and autopsy.
No idea.
Well, is assuming he died somewhere between 10:30 p.m. and 3 a.m., autopsy's done at 7:30 a.m., that's not considered a long delay in terms of an autopsy, true?
That's just not something I do, so I don't have
So
an
that would be a
opinion.
question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Question for an ME.
Yes.
All right, fair. Does trauma to the body increase the chances of postmortem production of alcohol?
It can, because if you have trauma where the gastric tract gets broken open, then that bacteria is released and can be in the blood, and you need the bacteria to do the postmortem formation.
Right. And that didn't happen here.
No idea.
So a body being warm for a long period of time, that also increases the chances
It
of
could.
postmortem.
It could, yes.
And are you aware if when a body arrives at a ME's office, typically it's refrigerated, fair?
Yes.
All right. Was there testing done for yeast in his system that could produce alcohol?
No, there was not.
Because yeast in the system is something that would result in postmortem. Well, I might be phrasing that wrong, but yeast in the system could result in the production of alcohol that would be seen, such as it was here.
Yes.
All right, but that wasn't tested for.
No.
All right. So it's possible that there was postmortem decomposition, but it's equally possible that he took a drink before bed, correct?
Correct.
How long after taking a drink of alcohol? Well, is it fair to say alcohol takes about 10 to 15 minutes to hit the bloodstream?
Again, it depends on the stomach and if it's full or not. So if you have an empty stomach, then the alcohol can get to the intestines faster, which is where the majority of the absorption occurs. So yeah, maybe 15, 30 minutes if your stomach is empty. But if you have delayed gastric emptying, then it might take longer for you to reach that peak alcohol concentration.
All right,
But-
peak alcohol concentration.
Yeah,
that's
for some alcohol to be in the blood, sure. 15, 30 minutes.
within 30 minutes.
Yes.
And some fentanyl would be in the blood probably within 30 minutes of ingestion.
Again, yeah, within 15 to 60 minutes in general, yes.
So, if Mr. Richins had fentanyl in the blood, but not alcohol, a real possibility is that he ingested the fentanyl and then took a drink, give or take maybe 30 minutes later. Maybe less, 15 to 30 minutes after he took the fentanyl. Fair assumption, correct?
I can't provide a timeline of when things were ingested. Some of it is, you say, take a drink. Did you take a sip? That might not even become measurable in the blood. Or how long did he live after the alcohol was consumed, and the body could have just metabolized it below our threshold for reporting. So I can speak generally about both. Yes, can be absorbed and be present in the blood within the 15, 30 minutes.
Well, that amount of fentanyl, typically someone would pass away, would die from that dosage of fentanyl within 20 minutes?
I can't provide an exact time frame. Sometimes there's delayed deaths with respiratory depression, so I can't pinpoint.
Okay, you can't I understand. I mean, we're talking in generalities here. So if someone takes that dosage of fentanyl that you found, what would you expect? Would someone live for hours after that? They wouldn't.
Again, I don't even know what dosage was taken, and I don't know this individual's history of use with this drug, so I can just say what was detected in the blood, what was detected in the gastric, and I can provide general information about absorption of alcohol and drugs and time frames.
All right, so he might have lived longer this was not the first time he took fentanyl. He may have lived longer after he took the fentanyl.
Again, I don't know what dose was taken.
All right, I'm basing it on what was in the blood. You know how much was in the blood, which can give you an idea, approximately, of a dose that was taken. Fair?
I mean, assuming it, I'm not sure what you mean by dose, like how many micrograms of fentanyl were taken.
All right. You've testified that 15 nanograms per milliliter is 5 times more than a lethal dose of fentanyl.
Correct.
All right. So, and I understand, we don't know if that meant he ingested 1 pill of fentanyl or 5 pills of fentanyl. We don't know that. True?
Correct.
All right. However, he clearly took more than, and you're going to have to help me with the numbers, because I don't know how it converts from milligrams taken to what's in the blood. But you said a lethal dose could be as low as 3 nanograms per milliliter.
A lethal concentration.
So in your experience as a toxicologist, wouldn't that give you some idea of the amount of fentanyl that was ingested to result in that in the blood? Maybe not exactly, but you would have an idea.
Well, again, previously I testified about postmortem redistribution, so I'm not aware if that happened or not and could have elevated that concentration of fentanyl. So there's limitations to being able to say what dose ended up with this concentration.
All right, let's try and put this in terms for a layperson. You're handed a fentanyl pill. It's got 1 milligram of fentanyl in it. Is that a lethal dose of fentanyl? Could it be? I know you don't know because it would depend on the individual.
Yes.
All right. And if someone took 1 milligram, 1 milligram pill of fentanyl, and give me a range of what you would expect to see in the blood. Would that be more or less than what you saw here? A range. I know you can't tell me exactly.
So let's say you're given a 800 microgram dose of fentanyl, because fentanyl is very potent.
1
so
milligram would be a lot of fentanyl,
yeah, we don't
right?
give milligrams,
Okay.
we give micrograms, so 1,000-fold less.
Thank you.
But therapeutically, you're trying to get into that 2 to 5 nanogram range, because it's a very small window of when it's therapeutic and when it's fatal. So.
All right. I think that helps me with my question. So someone's given a therapeutic dose of fentanyl in the hospital, which apparently is nanograms, because milligrams is a lot when it comes to fentanyl.
Micrograms, yes.
Micrograms, thank you. Yeah, I don't know if I ever took a science class in college, so. What would you expect to see range-wise in the blood had someone had a therapeutic dose of fentanyl in the hospital? Let's say they died, not for some reason or another, after they had that therapeutic dose of fentanyl. What range would you expect to see in the blood?
All right, so clinically, when they dose people, then like 2 to 3 nanograms per milliliter.
All right. So he clearly took more, obviously, than a therapeutic dose.
I can't make that conclusion.
Well, it would be pretty unusual to see 15 nanograms per milliliter if normally you think you'd see 2 or 3. Or I think you even said lower than that, I'm sorry.
But again, I don't know if postmortem redistribution occurred. I don't know this individual's history of use with this drug. And so if they had tolerance, they could take a higher dose and be able to be alive with a higher concentration.
All right. And we don't know that. Okay, let me just boil it down. Is it possible, based on the findings here, that Mr. Richins ingested fentanyl and then after he ingested the fentanyl, he had a drink of alcohol? We don't know how much, but he had a drink. That's a possibility. True?
True.
All right. I want to talk about the quetiapine for a minute. Now, quetiapine is not naturally produced in the body after someone dies, right?
Correct.
So he had to have ingested quetiapine.
Correct.
And it appears that it was not a very high dose. You said it was probably a fairly low dose of quetiapine.
In the gastric, yes.
In the gastric. And again, the quetiapine had not made it to the blood. He died before there was a chance for the quetiapine to make its way into his blood. Correct?
There was no quetiapine above our threshold for performing a confirmation test.
Well, you couldn't measure any quetiapine in the blood. True?
No.
You did measure some in the blood.
Yes.
And where's that in your report?
It wasn't above our threshold for reporting or performing a confirmation test.
So in your report, there's no indication that quetiapine was found in the blood.
Correct.
All right. And your report's accurate.
Correct.
All right. So, again, quetiapine takes about the same amount of time to hit the blood as fentanyl, more or less, about 30 minutes.
Correct.
So a very possible scenario, likely scenario, is that he ingested the fentanyl before the quetiapine. Fair?
No.
Well, if he took them together, they would have both been in the blood, right?
That's not true. I mean, if you didn't take a dose that would lead to a concentration that's reportable in the blood, doesn't mean you didn't take it. It just means that it wasn't at a concentration high enough to be above our threshold for reporting.
I understand that, but maybe my question wasn't clear. Whatever amount of quetiapine he took, there was not a measurable, reportable amount in his blood.
That is correct.
The fentanyl he took, there was.
That is correct.
The fentanyl had made its way to his blood prior to him passing.
That is correct.
The quetiapine had not.
Not above a concentration that would be reported by us.
Not even in a concentration that you noted in any way.
Correct.
So it is possible that he took the fentanyl and then later took the quetiapine. That's a possibility.
Sure.
All right. So one possibility here is that Mr. Richins ingested fentanyl, and then within the next 15, 20, 30 minutes, he had a drink and took a quetiapine. That's a possibility. Correct?
Sure.
All right. Just give me a moment, please. have no further questions at this time. Thank you, Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Burmester, within the scope of cross, please.
Taking up where we last were, aren't there other equally possible hypotheticals, such as a drink of alcohol with quetiapine and fentanyl taken at the same time?
Sure.
Okay. Is the problem that there aren't enough, there are too many variables that are left unknown that we can't fix any of those? We can't fix the hypothetical and say one is more likely than another because there are too many variables?
Yes.
One of those is that you can't tell this jury whether the alcohol in the gastric fluid came from an alcoholic beverage or decomposition.
Correct.
When you look at the 15 nanograms of fentanyl and the 3.3 of norfentanyl, can you give any insight as, is there a relationship, those numbers have some sort of relationship that we can tell anything from that? For example, how long ago it was taken, that sort of thing?
So assumptions still have to be made. So you would have, one assumption is this person has never used fentanyl before. Then that means that they lived long enough for the body to form norfentanyl. But for me, I have no idea their history of use. So there could be norfentanyl still present from a prior use, and then the new fentanyl was taken, and maybe they died before it started to metabolize, but that norfentanyl is still present from a prior use. But once fentanyl is absorbed into the blood, as soon as that happens, it's circulating, can get to the liver, and that norfentanyl can start to appear right away. So within a few minutes, you're going to start having norfentanyl formed and present in the blood once the fentanyl is absorbed into the blood.
Whether you're a previous user or a new user?
Correct.
Okay. We have the marker, possible marker of the acetylfentanyl. And if we make an assumption that that came from the same source as the fentanyl.
Your Honor, I think that's beyond the scope. I didn't ask her anything about the acetylfentanyl.
Well, let's see what the rest of the question is, and then you can renew your objection. Go ahead, Mr. Burmester.
We can make the assumption that it was an illicit source as opposed to a illicit source.
Same objection.
Sustained. Just keep.
Okay. Okay, it's fine. I'll just. That's all the questions.
Anything further, Ms. Lewis?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. You're welcome to step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Detective Frankfurt.
Give me a sense. Is this a 15-minute witness or a longer?
Shorter.
Okay, let's do it.